So, here we go.
Okay.
Great. All right, I'm Barbara Garrity Blake, and I'm talking to Lisa Pelletier Harmon here at her beautiful house in Moorhead.
Thank you.
On April 27th, 2015, as part of the Smithsonian Institute and the Corsound Museum's Hometown Teams Project. So we're going to talk about surfing. And Lisa, can we just start off with you telling me a little bit about yourself, where you were born, and where did you grow up, and how did you encounter this world of surfing?
I'm from Moorhead. I've lived all over the county. I've lived down east in Gloucester. I spent a number of years down there. But most of my life has been spent over on Bogue Sound. Surfing, when I was coming up in the mid-70s, surfing had been around for a while, but it was still not mainstream. And one of my brothers was very much into the sport, and even though I was younger, I was the proverbial little sister following behind in the, wherever he went, whatever he did was, I thought was awesome. Did not have an aptitude for the sport. I might have, I'll never know. My brother did a classic big brother thing. I was bugging him, I want to learn. And so he picked the worst possible time. Early March, the water was like a washing machine. That's back when wetsuits had just come out, and few people actually even had access to them. And like the movie A Christmas Story, Ralphie, where his arms are just sticking up, they were so thick you could barely move, have movement of your limbs. And he did dawn patrol, and I'm not a morning person, so all these were this was all calculated for me not to take up surfing. So that would be one thing he would have, because we're all very competitive people. We even made an agreement as young adults that none of us would go into the same career field.
Wow.
Because our competitive nature so far has been fun. I think if there was a paycheck involved, it would cross over into strictly competitive, cutthroat kind of thing. So
That's funny.
But I stayed out there. I probably drank a gallon of salt water, but I was as stubborn as he was. So I was going to stay out there until I actually got up and rode away. It about beat me, but I did it. But when we got through and we were walking up, he said, "You ready to pick me up tomorrow?" I went, "No, that's all right." I went, "Nah, that's okay. I'll just sit on the beach and watch." But I have grown up in that community my entire life, and I've always liked it because it's extremely diverse. A lot of sports draw people together. I think there's diversity in every sport, but a lot of sports draw people together because of a certain team, and they rally around that. And surfing is completely different because there's not necessarily teams. It's not set up that way. You can be a competitive surfer, you can be a soul surfer or a free surfer. There's different levels, and it's just you follow your own path. It's a mixture of, to me, my take on it and my experience with it is the surfing community. Surfers are a mixture of extreme athletes and
Can I get you water or drinks or anything?
you need to top off your
I'm
water.
good, thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
But it's a cross between the surfer gets something almost metaphysical in their time out there. It's a communion with nature in addition to an athletic endeavor. And I always get tickled because we try and introduce surfing as a positive sport, a family-oriented sport. We're still dealing with stereotypes from the early 60s that people still cling to. And it's actually a multi-family, multi-generational sport now. And we've got doctors, lawyers, plumbers, electricians. I mean, it goes across all geopolitical spectrums. And the thing that they have in common is a love of nature and a love of athleticism, and they've combined those two in this particular sport.
So when you say it's individualized, there's no scenario where, like, say, the American surfers are competing against, or this East Coast surfers versus West Coast surfers, or it's always the individual?
You have, in the amateur level, they have amateur contests that go on to, regional, state, national, international, but most of the focus is on the professional level surfers who go do that. You will have companies that will sponsor teams, pay for their travel to go to different contests and represent them. But really, the main team that we'll focus on and is a big factor here in the Carteret County is the Eastern Surfing Association. We have Betty Marsh, who is in the Surfing Hall of Fame from Carteret County. She was one of the original founders and movers and shakers to get this organization started. And to my knowledge, this is the largest amateur sports association in the world.
Wow.
And so that sprang out of the mindset of some very forward-thinking people. And one of them happens to be from Carteret County, so we're very proud of that.
So when you say, you said earlier before we started this that there are 3 generations right now of surfers since it started. Is that what you're talking about, since this Eastern Association started? I mean,
no, this is even before the Eastern Surfing Association. Actually, surfing in North Carolina has been here for over 100 years. But it really took off in the early 60s. There were a number of things that converged at the time. We had a lot of military coming back from other places, bringing the sport with them. We had a lot of guys that were coming home from military service that had been to other places and had seen the sport and had interest, and had the 80-pound long boards.
wow.
And, some people were drawn to it right away, and others got into it by watching and observing and seeing, well, that looks a lot of fun. And one year we had one of our contests, and we had NPR, National Public Radio, was doing a piece on surfing, and they had contacted us and asked if they could come and just hang out for the weekend and observe. And part of what I did was public relations, and I said, okay, tell me the demographics that you want to interview. I'll have them lined up for you. Tell me when you're ready for the next one. I said, but the deal is, the second day you come down to the beach wearing a bathing suit because you're going to try to surf. You can't really write about it.
Yeah.
I said, because what you're looking at is some of the best in the world come to our charity event. Because of my brother's reputation, we're very blessed. He had a wonderful reputation, and they come 20 years later. They still come from all over the world and pay to be here, and then pay to enter, and then make donations on top of that. And we help the surfing community up and down the East Coast. And but we told her, it's like, if you want to write about these people, because to just sit and watch, it looks effortless.
Right.
It's just smooth and graceful and, or high energy, depending on what you're looking at. And so we sent her over into the free surf zone, and during the contest you have a contest area, and then you have a free surf zone where, the looky-loos, they want to get out on the water with the pros and that, or where people are getting ready to go out, their heat's coming up and they want to get warmed up, they go to another area to stay out of the competition zone. So we set her up with an old-time surfer, very, very patient fellow named Tim Grimes. And so I went, and in between checking on everyone at the contest, I'd go over and just peek, and that's even with him pushing her off, her not even having to paddle. And she was a fit young lady, It's not like, a 70-year-old grandmother trying to get out there and do it for the first time. She's a fit young lady. And I figured she'd suffered enough, so I went over there to wave him in about the time. he pushed off. She stood up for a millisecond before falling over. To her, that was the biggest thing in the world, because spending almost an hour just trying to stand up.
Yeah.
You know, you don't realize there's nothing solid underneath of you. It's liquid movement, liquid motion at all times. So you're constantly trying to balance, plus move, plus do maneuvers,
Yeah.
plus do tricks, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it was so funny because she came out and she did the classic, bent halfway over, put her hands on her knees, and was just, that was awesome. That was great. But she came out and she said, I'm so glad I did that. She said, I had no idea how hard that sport is.
Wow.
Just by watching it. Because I can sit on the beach, and this is how I got involved in the surfing culture, by, like I say, following my brother around, and then my peers started getting into surfing. I can sit for hours and watch, and the world goes away. It takes me to a zen place. I just look at fluid, beautiful movement, the water, the sounds, the light on the water, you know, not to get all metaphysical and stuff, but that's what it is for me. And a lot of times, that's why I say soul surfers and free surfers and professionals, and even the professionals can fit into all three of those categories, you know. There are guys, I read a wonderful interview about my brother by Pete Dooley, who owns Natural Art Surfboards. It's a very big very respected surfing company along the East Coast.
I think I read that last night. Is it posted on the Buddy Pelletier?
Yes.
I read that last night.
I love that, and
That's
because they would
great.
try and talk to him about this and that, and he'd talk about the stars and the moons and the gravity and the waves and this and that, and it's like, you're doing these interviews, you're going to have a hard time finding someone who can articulate exactly what draws them when it's 20 degrees outside and they're having to put on, you know, 3/4 inch rubber and they're still getting ice cream headaches from duck diving into frozen water, but they're compelled. They have to go. If there's waves, if there's water moving, they have to do it. They can't stop. They have to go, and that I admire. I watch from the pier when it's cold. You know, and then I go back in the pier and get warm, and then I'll go back out and peak.
Yeah.
And one of my earliest memories, actually, of surfing, and it also includes my brother, is, and I think the reason I remember it is because snowfall here is so rare. Mm-hmm. And when I was a child growing up, I think I was probably 10 or 12 before I ever saw real snow. But this is, I was probably 7 or 8, and there was snow falling. I think that's what why I remember it. It's the snow falling, not that my brother was surfing. But I remember my dad was concerned because, okay, where's your brother? And what he would do, because my parents did not allow him to surf because at the time the subculture had such a bad reputation. And he would hide a surfboard in the marshes along the Sound and then paddle over across Bogue Sound and walk across the island, go surfing, and then at the end of the day he would walk back across the island, paddle back across the Sound, stash his board back in the marshes, and then come on home. And so it was getting, not dusk, but it was getting at the end of the day, and my dad's like, okay, where's your brother at? And we all went. And so I remember riding with my dad, and we went over to Sportsman's Pier, which is no longer there, but when we were growing up, I think there were 7 piers along the island. Some were friendlier to surfers than others were. And I remember, you know, walking through the parking lot and seeing the occasional snowflake coming down and going, oh, this is like magic, you know? And we went and we walked out on the pier, and there was a lone surfer out in the water. And like I say, this was very early on. I don't even think that the Navy scuba divers were using wetsuits yet. I mean, it may not have even been made. But he had used plastic sheeting of some kind and had wrapped his upper torso and had ladies Playtex living gloves. Remember the yellow housekeeping gloves? And had taped them around his to seal off. And he was out there in shorts. And it was snowing. He had to be in the water, you know, and that's something that I think as you get into these oral histories, you're going to find it's more than a sport. It's more than a compulsion. It's more than a commune with nature and the elements. It's a lot of things to a lot of people. So to get them to nail down one specific thing, if you do that, I want to hear the answer. You please share it with me. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. And so, did he get in trouble that day?
No, we gave him a ride home and then cranked up the heat in the car.
What was it about the subculture that was not good back then,
Well,
or the stereotype of
the
it?
stereotype started, in my opinion, was we had a. Do I? Well, no, this is even before Spicoli. That didn't help either. But during the earlier days, a lot of the guys coming back from Vietnam were coming back with drug addictions and introducing drugs into this area that had never been part of our lifestyle here. And so there was some good and some bad that came along with the things the fellows were bringing back from their time overseas during active duty. And so that subculture kind of grew alongside, timing-wise, and I won't say that there were never any surfers who didn't dabble and experiment, but what we tell the younger surfers, what we've been telling them for 2 decades now, if you want to take these wonderful surf tours, you know, travel around the world and, you know, get all these great breaks and do all these things, you're not going to do it if you're doing drugs. Number one, you're not going to be at your physical peak. Number two, you're not going to get a job that will afford you the luxury of traveling to different surf breaks, which is another reason why we push education, because you're not going to get there without a good JOB.
Yeah.
And he's got to be out with me. Hold on.
Baby's turned red.
Okay.
He's jealous that there's somebody else here looking. Talk to me! Love
That's right.
me!
For my next interview.
Okay, Amy, back. Amy, let's back up. Come on.
Boy.
Come on over here. Come on
Well,
over
so-
here, just lay down.
So tell me more about your brother, Buddy Pelletier.
Yeah, Buddy
What was his
Pelletier.
real name?
Wade Hampton Pelletier.
Wade Hampton?
Yeah, named after
A
General,
general.
yeah. General, yeah.
Because my husband went to Wade Hampton High School in South Carolina.
Oh, that is wild. Well, our father's name was Wade, and actually his was Clarence Wade, but he went by Wade. And my brother's was Wade after our dad, and I'm not sure if Hampton came about because of the general or if my dad just liked the name.
Right.
My younger brother's name is Kit. And my dad said, I always wanted a son named Kit.
Oh.
So
there's 4 of you siblings.
actually, no, there's 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You have a big family.
yeah, there are 4 surviving.
Okay.
We've lost 2 of our older brothers.
Oh,
So
sorry.
thank you.
Yeah.
But Buddy got into surfing. I have pictures of him when he was probably 14 years old or so, and he was, as you talk to some other people, David Sledge, Bill Roach, things like that, you'll keep hearing a common thread. He was born to do one thing. He was genetically predisposed to be a surfer. He, even before surfing, his balance was incredible. He would do one-handed handstands in the front yard and then just hop one-handed around the yard.
Wow.
I mean, just insane. Physically fit by nature. When I went to high school, there were still records standing. My brother's 9 years older than I am. He still had standing records in the most sit-ups in a certain amount of time and all these different endurance things. And he just had this incredible balance, and he had webbed fingers. When you look at the pictures, his webbing comes up here. And so that gave him the extra paddling out, you
He's
know.
the only one in the family that
Yeah.
had webbed fingers?
Yeah, the only one, and
Wow.
he was also much taller, just like Mike Tabling. The memorial paddle out is happening. He was very unusual in the surfing community. Lynn, the fans are too much in the surfing community because the lower your center of gravity, the easier it is to perform a lot of maneuvers. And I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem.
It's too cold out there. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
But no, they talk about to be as tall as he was, that he had bird bones, hollow bones, because the weight restrictions that a taller guy might have didn't apply to him. The center of balance didn't. He broke all the rules of what you would expect when you'd see him. I read one article that was just absolutely hilarious to me because I knew my brother really well. Was they were in another country because he would have photographers that would actually travel with him and then submit to like the Surfing Magazine and all these other magazines because he was a world ranked professional. And he actually turned pro at the age that most people retired in that sport, and still went on to dominate. And his sportsmanship was something he was noted for in contests because, you know, there's a lot of money up in hand, sponsorships, people to pay you to go places and do things. And his attitude was very, he was a good ambassador for North Carolina, sports-wise or not. And he was known as the Southern Gentleman was his moniker on the surfing circuit. And he would take his competitors, these young kids, under his wings and go, you need to come and spend a week with me. And I remember Matt Keckley, who went on to become world champion after my brother passed away. It was extremely touching. He didn't know me. He didn't have to do this. He came from Florida and came to my house over there and sat down, and he said, I really need to share this story with you about how your brother impacted my life. He said, when I was, what we call a grom is a young surfer, and he said, I was a big deal. He said, I was a big deal. He said, and the way that I was raised sports-wise was competition. You got to kill the competition, got to slay the competition, da-da-da-da. He said, and in my young mind, that started transforming into I had to hate my competition. They were my enemy. I had to be destroyed, decimated. Then that started going from being in the water to the attitude started following me onto dry land. He said, and he said, I started turning into not a really nice person. He said, and your brother, who was my competition, who had no need to try and teach me how to be a better surfer and a better competitor, actually said, I want to teach you to be a better human being. He said, and then the rest will follow. And he said that they went to, I forget if it was Costa Rica or Dominican Republic, years before they blew up as surf spots, and they spent a week, just the two of them, pretty much with my brother, just telling them how to think smart. And each heat, that's 15 minutes out of your life. That's all it is. It's 15 minutes out of your life. Go surf for yourself. If you're happy with what you do, what the judges score you is really, it's not even relevant. And Matt said that, he said that week changed his life and changed his outlook on life. He's still to this day is known as the Eternal Grom because he's always so happy. He's the first one to jump in the water. He's the first one to, take the kids. Come on, let's have a surf camp for the day. Free for everybody. Just come on. So it's really neat for me to see the Carteret County attitude that my brother took around the world it lasting even 20 years after he's gone. You know, when we send our surfers from the Carteret County, Bogue Bank area, they are some ferocious competitors, but they're good sportsmen, and it's noted. So the generations are learning by example, and so we're telling them, we're showing them. You can still be a good person, you can still be a good, fair competitor, and still win everything you want to win. And so that's part of his legacy that we're really proud that's still continuing on, the mindset of sportsmanship. And the East Coast Surfing Championships, which is the oldest surfing contest in the United States and second oldest in the world, has honored his memory by naming their sportsmanship award the Buddy Pelletier Sportsmanship Award, because that's not just winning. He knew how to win and be happy. You know, he didn't stomp off the beach. At our contest, sportsmanship is more important than winning. If you come up on the beach and throw your board down and throw a hissy fit, you're called to the tent and you can be DQ'd, disqualified. If you're not a sportsman, you're at the wrong contest.
Right. Wow.
So that's why I say we're showing each consecutive generation, you know, how to be a good sportsman and still be competitive, still have that edge, still have your tricks up your sleeve, and learn how to, you know, you want to learn your judges and things like that when it comes to competitive surfing. But back to, I'm sorry, I'll go off on a tangent in a heartbeat.
Go.
But the first generation of surfing, I think, really had it rough in that people made a lot of assumptions and put them all in one basket. And there's a lot of stereotypes that were formed at that time that people are clinging to. Like it's a lot. Sorry.
It's all right.
Butterfly got too close. All right, Abby. Thank you. Timmy. Is Timmy in the well? What's going on? All right, Abby. That's enough. Thank you. Come here. Come here. Thank you for saving Mommy.
What?
Somebody can be walking over there. It's out of his zone.
Did the pier owners object to surfers being too close to their piers? Was that an issue?
That was a massive, major issue, and the only two piers that did not have that attitude are the only two piers still in operation.
Oh, that's karma.
No, that's economy.
Economy.
Surfers bring money to this area. So they were cutting their noses off
So
despite
that's
their
Oceana or Oceana?
Oceana and Bogue Inlet Pier.
Okay.
All the other piers have either closed or been torn down by hurricanes, and they didn't have the money to rebuild because they didn't have the client base.
Why didn't they want the surfers around?
Well, that's why I say initially, back in the 60s, the initial stereotypes were these are ruffians, you know, hoodlums, you know, druggies, stoners, da-da-da.
So it wasn't that they were afraid they were going to get tangled up in fishing lines.
Oh, it was that in addition, because at first their money for generations had been the fishermen on the pier. And rip currents, which are something you usually want to avoid, surfers use them to their benefit.
Really?
Yes, that's how they, during contests, they will zip close to the pier because the water is just shooting straight out, and that gets them back out into the impact zone faster in that 15-minute heat.
Okay, wow, interesting.
And but no, it was a very bad scene for a while because a lot of times surf is created because of obstructions in the sea floor. And so piers were a natural wave maker. And North Carolina has I believe 500, I can't remember if it's 500 yards or 500 feet that on either side that the pier owner has the right to work within. And most pier owners met halfway, 250 feet. You know, so that was at least a compromise. But if the surfer or if the water or the wave brought the surfer too close to the pier, there was a lot of stuff that nowadays the people are charged. Before, the law enforcement just turned a blind eye. They would actually throw things to hurt them. Hooks, the sinkers, things like that to actually try and hurt them, and after a while, I don't care who you are, surfer or not, you're going to go, okay, that's enough. And so they would start pulling the lines and taking the, the reel and everything overboard and going, meet you on the beach. So that did not make for a good environment to try and get a sport started when a lot of people, before they'd even met or talked to a single surfer, then realized how individual everybody was, and not everybody was, laid out doing drugs. Not everybody was a surf bum. A lot of people had jobs. Most people had jobs. Surfing is not a cheap sport, so you generally have to generate some income to participate. And we had some pier owners that would go so far. The Moorhead Ocean Pier was the most notorious and also the first closed. He would actually put broken glass into the sand and cover it with sand, so as the guys would walk, they would, tear their feet up. There was a surfer raising awareness for a cause. I forget what the cause was, but he was paddling from like New England to Florida. Now, what a great reputation for our area. The guy from Moorhead Ocean Pier goes off to the end of the pier and starts shooting at him. He's not even surfing. He's paddling offshore. He starts shooting at him. So there was an irrational breakdown of communications from the very start. And that's something that the Eastern Surfing Association has gone a long way in ending some of those stereotypes, and people see that it's children, parents, grandparents. They're all surfing, and they're all surfing together. They're all involved in the same sport, and all of that. But we would also go around to the municipalities when the surfers would be being hassled for what we consider were minor infractions in the ocean that we all should be able to enjoy and love, and that some of the laws on the books as far as the clearance away from the piers were very geared towards surfers alone. They didn't exclude people swimming, people on floats, any other thing. Just surfers.
Oh, they were discriminating.
Yes. Yeah. And so we would go and talk to the municipalities and say, you want us in your waters? We're first responders already out in the water with flotation devices. We work with the lifeguards where there are. There are probably 5 lifeguards on the entire 30-mile strand of ocean. And tourism is how you make your money. Do you want everybody dying?
Plus, people love to watch surfers.
Yeah, and we had a meeting with. I was very impressed with Joan Lamson when she was mayor of Pine Knoll Shores. There were some kerfuffles and dust-ups with some surfers, and so we asked for a meeting and called in different aspects of the town, the fire chief, EMS, and we all just had a roundtable discussion, very civil, everybody seemed open to ideas. But at the time, Mayor Lamson did not really see the benefit of surfers in their waters. I went, well, how many lives per day do you require to be saved before, you see a benefit? And I really was not being sarcastic or trying to bait her. That was a serious question. And even had the fire chief go, she's got a point. But Mayor Lamson was not familiar with the entirety of the surfing community, just complaints coming into her office. And she does have to look out for her constituents and what are their best interests and needs. So we try and go in with a neutral position and just try and expand their experience a little bit. So she said, okay, she said, if you bring me documented proof that a surfer has saved someone within the town limits of Pine Knoll Shore, she said, I will make a proclamation. We will have a day just for them. I said, okay. Well, about 36 hours later, I called her. I had 6 guys. And one of them had saved one of the EMS workers of Pine Knoll Shores. So, and
it was documented.
And she was good to her word. She really was. They had a proclamation, they had the surfers there. She gave them all thanks from the town of Pine Knoll Shores, and the relationships are not as prickly now, you know. And it's just a matter of educating, getting people away from the stereotypes or just where they have just one side of the story or partial information. I mean, we've had, like I say, it's a tourist area now. It's developed into a tourist area. In the 60s, not so much. Now it's probably the biggest part of our economy. And so you definitely want to keep them happy, but they come down here and rent a beach cottage for a week and think they own the ocean in front of it as well. And so we also try and educate instead of confront. And that's what we're trying to teach the younger generations to do as well. We were at a contest and we had a lawyer from New York come up, and he was probably way down the beach away from us, but there were surfers surfing in what we call the free zone. In other words, it's a free ocean, surf wherever you want. And he came up to us because he thought that those surfers were also in the contest and under our control and wanted them off of his beach. And instead of arguing or confronting, we just sat him down and had a nice calm talk about your rights in at the high tide mark, you know, educating. And if you have children and things out in the water, you want these guys around because that's how people drown. And we've had surfers drown trying to save people, you know, and the foundation tries to help the families and things like that. But that's part of what the foundation does, in addition to helping our community through scholarships and humanitarian aid. We try and educate and, you know, break some stereotypes, because then it'll be easier for, you know, recognition for other people that want to get into the sport. There's starting to be surf clubs at colleges and local high schools, and it's now seen, instead of the Stoners Club, it's now seen as a real community program and outreach program in the schools.
Right. And to be clear on the tape, we're now talking about the Buddy Pelletier Surfing Foundation.
Yes, I'm sorry. I will flip in and out because
Yeah.
that's a big part of my total experience as well. So.
And I was reading all about it on
Yeah.
the website, and I see that it's been in existence 20 years now.
This is our 20th year.
Yeah.
My brother, what a lot of people don't realize is my brother, they think we did this to honor him. No, my brother planned this the last few weeks of his life. He did not sleep for 2 weeks, and we sat there and planned and planned and planned, and I can't believe how forward-thinking he was. This is before cell phones, before PCs were in every home. He saw into a future that we hadn't even imagined at that point, and gave us leeway in the mission statement and how it was formed, that we just rolled with things. As our community evolves, we're able to just roll forward without having to stop, reassess, change this, change that. We can just move forward with the times. It started with the Buddy Pelletier Surfing Foundation. The way it started was when Buddy was sick. It was a very rare cancer and very aggressive, and mercifully, it took him quickly. At the time, we didn't think it was a good thing. Looking back, it was. But it was a Pro-Am, which is a surf contest, which is a combination of professional surfers and amateur surfers surfing different divisions, but you have a little bit of everything going on down in Emerald Isle. And these guys, it was really amazing to us, because these guys and girls, when they come down to the beach, there's not really room to put your wallet or your purse, you know.
Yeah.
And they just made one announcement at the contest that, you know, Buddy was sick, and did anybody want to help? And that afternoon, John Doyle, who was one of the fellows running the contest, came up to Buddy and handed him $2,000 in one afternoon. Just guys and girls giving up their dollar bills, their $5 bill that they had set aside for a soda and some cracks, you know, some chips after their surf session, and said, "This is for you to do whatever you want to do." And he thought about it. He said, "I know what I want to do," because he was blessed with I guess because he had left such a positive impact on the people that he had touched around the world, there was nothing that he wanted for during his time of need. He didn't even have to ask. It would already be there. And he knew that he was blessed, and he knew there would be a lot of people in his position that would not have those resources. So it started out with, he said, he wanted to start a foundation for humanitarian aid for people that were in his position that might not have the outreach and the connections that he did. And then he went, but also, he said, this needs to be education. On the pro tour, he said, believe it or not, he said, there's stage moms, quote unquote, stage moms in sports as well.
Yeah.
And he said, he said it would really break his heart. He said, you'd see these kids that at their home break, they are just busting it, just tearing it up. And the parents go, there's money in this. And they actually would take them out of school and put them on the pro circuit, just dump them in with the pros, and all of a sudden, guess what? You're not that hot anymore. You're not that good.
Yeah.
And Buddy said it would kill him that he'd be on the circuit and he'd be traveling to France, Australia, all these places. He'd come back, to Florida and see that kid that was there at the beginning of the season is now pumping gas, and he's off the education track. Chances are he'll never get back on it.
Because he got snatched out and put on the circuit.
And before he was ready, or he may have never been ready. I think the number of surfers that actually turn pro and are able to make a lifestyle at it is only, I think it's less than 2%.
Yeah.
And, but so that was important to him. So the foundation scholarship we're very, very proud of. And the schools love us because we don't have a GPA requirement, a minimum GPA. Now, we look at school, we look at grades, we look at the type of classes you take. But this serves a number of purposes. Like I say, he was very forward-thinking. A lot of students today have to work, and it's not just for pocket money. It's to help put food on the table. And that is just a reality. So without a GPA minimum requirement, we can look at a student who's been blessed to be able to focus on their studies and they're making straight A's. And then we can look at the student who's having to work 35, 40 hours a week to help feed their siblings. And they're making B's and C's, and we can put them on a level playing field.
Yeah.
We're able to look at the whole picture instead of just stats and a formulary.
Yeah.
And we're very, very blessed that we've assisted approximately 65 students in getting their college education, and we have a 100% graduation rate. Find me another scholarship program that can tell you that.
That's amazing.
And see, that busts another stereotype. And even growing up in the surf community and growing up around all of these guys and gals and knowing the drive that they have just innately built into them, after my brother passed, I would just start laughing. It's like, you're still teaching me stuff, because I was very nervous the first year that we put out for the scholarship what we would be getting back. And I found out that even I had some stereotypes built in. I was guilty as well, because we were getting in students with perfect SATs, students with 4.5 GPA, and people that had been in community service since they were like old enough to walk, and just all these things. And I'm like, when we got them, I just looked up and went, okay, I got it, okay, all right, don't sell my own community short,
Yeah.
So for us, a big drive in our fundraising is that, not just the humanitarian aid, but these kids, for a lot of them, because of the way sports scholarships are done through the school system, they're not eligible for hardly any scholarships. And especially students that, the way my brother looked at it, he said, here's how I was. He said, first 3 years of school, he said, that last year, reality hits you. You're going to be an adult. You're going to expect to be a productive adult. You want to be able to live a life you will enjoy somewhat. and it's not going to happen without an education. So that's another reason for no GPA requirement, because you don't want to penalize. If anything, you want to pat them on the back. The students that kind of just drifted through the first parts of high school, you have some students that come day one with a plan and they're ready, and good for them. We appreciate them as well. But you have some students that have just kind of drifted along and then suddenly realized, oh, this is real, and buckle down and do that thing.
Yeah.
They deserve a chance for a scholarship just like everybody else. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I was looking at your application, and one of the questions said, how will your education benefit the surfing community?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of answers do you get from these kids? 'Cause that's a tough question, I think.
Well, it basically, I think people don't realize surfing community is not just along with a little 2-mile strip along water. Okay, surfing community is all over the world, all over the country. We get scholars. It's narrowed down now because they now know it's East Coast surfing, but we would get scholarship applications from all over the world, even landlocked countries, because once they surf, they will travel to surf. It's unusual. Surfing is one of the sports that is not just through school or through college and then you settle down, you have your family. Surfing is a sport you can continue. We've got surfers that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s that are still surfing, still traveling. You know, surfing is a sport that you can do throughout your life, and you can have that community and that camaraderie throughout your life. I look at it as I have two families. I have my blood family and I have my surfing family. I can go to virtually any point on a map on Earth, and with no money, no place to stay, by the end of the day, if I find surfers, I will have food, I will have a couch to crash on, and I will have someone looking out for me.
Wow.
So that's pretty good, pretty good crew to belong to.
Yeah.
And so when we ask what they're going to bring back to the surfing community, it's basically, what are you going to bring back to your community? Yeah. And surfing, it doesn't have to be surfing related. It doesn't have to be water related. But I will say, I think it's just because these kids grow up in the water and are drawn to the water. A lot of them go into marine science fields. A lot of them go into engineering. We have lawyers. We have the full spectrum, because you can come back as a doctor and help your surfing community and help your community at large.
Yeah.
You can help. We want to know, how are you going to help people? How's your education going to benefit others besides yourself? Because we want them to think outside of themselves. Less self-centric, more outside.
And that's so important.
I know.
So important. That's great.
Yeah. So that's why I say we're extremely proud of that 100% graduation rate. Yeah. And they've all gone back into the community in different areas, and they're contributing. That's all we can ask. That's the most we can ask of anybody, is to be a contributing member of society. Yeah. And so, to me, each time a kid graduates, boom, there's another stereotype busted. Boom, there goes another one. Yeah, knowledge bomb. Boom, there goes another one. So
great.
Yeah.
So in the 20 years that you've had this Buddy Pelletier Surfing Foundation, do you think this has really helped turn that negative stereotype because of all the community work you do?
I think it's definitely, I won't say we are totally responsible for it by any means, but I think the younger kids, seeing the people that they revere and look up to, our local legends. We have a number of surfers here from this area that could have turned pro and could have made a mark, but some people don't like the competition. To them, it's not about competition. That's why my brother was so late in even joining the competitive circuit, because that was not what he was about. But he also realized that was a way to have someone pay him to go around the world and surf, and he went, well, maybe there's something to this thing. Yeah. Might be something to this thing. Yeah. But they see like I say, we try and teach by example instead of just telling them this is what you should do. We show them not only what you should do, but how to do it. And, like in our contest, a lot of contests are cutthroat. They're competitive. They have to be, because people are counting on making an income and supporting their family on how they're doing. And at ours, they come, and for one contest out of the year, they come and they get to show off their latest trick and all this stuff, and they fall all over. No big deal. There are no points being given. They're not going to lose any standing in the pro circuit. And, so the kids come and they get to surf with their idols, not just the local idols, but, sorry, random cat, but their idols, in the surfing community, national world champions and all this stuff. And they're in the same heat with them. I mean, that's just such a jazz them up and everything. And they're seeing the pros out there in that 15-minute heat. They've got to try and catch a maximum of 10 waves, but they want to get the best 10 waves that they can. And surfer loses his board, leash comes off, things happen. In most contests, that guy's on his own. In our contest, and it's happened more than once, it's not an isolated incident, the kids see the competitors paddling over to get the guy's board and paddle it back to him. We're having fun. We're doing this thing, and so that helps. And so it plants a seed, and I think it's not just here. Now, I will tell you, among the surfing community, this area is renowned for its hospitality in the water. A lot of places are known for their localism. If you're not local or not going out with a local, it can get a little sketchy. That's a stereotype that's still pretty strong, because it's still little pockets of it here and there.
So people are very territorial.
Very territorial. Our opinion of it, and what we share with the surfers coming up, unless you surf in that one quadrant of water and never surf anywhere else, you have no right to say anything to anybody coming to surf in your quadrant. If you go to Wrightsville Beach and surf, and somebody from Wrightsville Beach comes here, you need to be welcoming, because that way they will be welcoming to you when you go down on their break. You don't own the ocean. We've argued that with people on dry land. You're going to tell me you're going to argue amongst yourselves over that? That's a little counterproductive.
Yeah.
So I think that's an idea that's evolving on its own, kind of organically over time. And then you have organizations like the ESA and the Buddy, and the Virginia Beach Longboard Federation, the Wrightsville Beach Longboard Federation. There are other little pockets of groups all along the coast that are all about sportsmanship, and it's changing over time, surfer by surfer, their attitude out in the water, which conversely changes their attitude on dry land.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you were talking about the other day at the museum, the first meeting, the things that you do with the little kids?
Oh, we do a lot with the little kids. That's, for one thing, my brother, even though I shared the story of how he did not want to teach me to surf, he was well known for taking a special interest in novice surfers, regardless of their age, but he had a soft spot for the young surfers and kids. And he was very patient and would show them a lot. And Mindy Ballou, who was voted Athlete of the Century because of her ability in a multitude of sports, she's also an avid surfer. And her brothers are both phenomenal surfers. David Sledge, which you met at the meeting, her brother Ricky.
I didn't know that was her brother.
Yeah, they are all phenomenal surfers. They were all born athletes as well. But to hear her tell it, it's kind of like she went through her version with her brothers, like I went. They didn't want any part of taking their little sister out and dealing. She said that my brother would take her out and teach her different things, and her brothers would ignore her. My brother would take her out. Yeah. It probably would have happened if I'd gone out with her brothers. They would have looked out for me and helped me, and it's a sibling thing. But he definitely had a soft spot for kids. And I think, in addition to that, the things that he saw on the pro circuit with the younger surfers and the pressure put onto them at too early of an age. He really wanted them to surf, to just love it, to enjoy the communion with nature and I can't describe the feelings of surfing, but I've heard enough people and I've seen it, and I can see their faces when the movement in the water and all that. It's indescribable. I think it's really indescribable for someone who does not surf, and it's probably going to be hard for them to describe it to you as well. And it probably has a different meaning or connection to each person. It's completely different for each person, and that's what's great is all these individuals can come together under a common thing. But with kids, for years we've done surf clinic outreach with the Boys and Girls Club, and in our contest that we started, which is now, I'm not saying we were the first one to do it. To my knowledge, we were the first one to do this, is because they have age limits on contests, and who you surf against is based on age, not experience. You have divisions based on age, and we started. There's Minihune, which is kids. We started the mini Groms, which is toddlers and up.
Where does the word Grom come from?
I couldn't even tell you, because most of the terms started are Hawaiian terms.
Okay.
And I don't know if Grom came from Grommet,
Yeah.
I have no idea. Maybe some of the guys or girls can tell you that I don't know where
so
that.
mini Grom is a toddler?
Toddlers
on
and
a
up.
surfboard?
We have, the parents are out there in the water. We have water marshals 3 layers deep, and then we have water marshals on the beach as well. And basically, and here, see, we don't believe in getting a medal just for showing up. That's creates a false sense of how life is going to be.
Yeah.
And so they are actually judged by professional judges at the same caliber that the professional surfers are judged at.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you what, those kids will blow your mind.
I'm sure.
There's some kids that come up from Folly Beach, South Carolina. The Weaver Boys is what I call them. And I'm talking 2 years old, they're doing what's called helicopters. They're surfing on boards that are over 9 feet long. They're 3 feet tall, and they're spinning the board around as they're going down the wave.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I'm saying. If you have no expectations, the children will not rise to expectations. Yeah. If you give them expectations and they rise to them and they meet them, it means a whole lot more.
Yeah.
And so when we have our award ceremony, now we've got I've retired due to health reasons with our events, and our new crew's doing a bang-up job. And they're being very smart, because we like to, whatever we do, we like to do very well. So they have rebooted the contest, and not all factors are refigured back in yet, because they want to get things down to a science, then add this in, and we're very comfortable with the direction that they're taking things. But for many years we had, and they may incorporate it again this year, for many years we had a beach cleanup contest. And the kids could work in teams, and the parents had to sign off, because they're not just at our side. Our side is clean. They're going up and down the beach strand and going up into the dune line and trash. And it's Saturday and about a half a day Sunday that the kids are doing this.
During the same time you're having the Buddy?
Yeah, we're having a contest for the kids, as well as the kids surfing in the contest, and then we have a contest for the kids that are on the beach, because it's very much a family-oriented sport now. So you want to do things to engage everyone at all ages, and like I say, we want to teach by example. So what we do is we have a beach cleanup contest, and it's only open to kids. So the grown-ups can't get in on it, so already the kids think that's cool.
Yeah.
The cool factor is way up.
Right.
And then the surf shops, the biggest prize packs go to the kids' beach cleanup.
Really?
I'm talking real gear, real swag.
That's great.
And that's the big announcement right before we announce the big winners of the contest. The big announcement is the winners of the kids' beach cleanup contest, with a total of the weight over less than 36 hours, because 12 of those hours were dark and they were asleep. And some years it's been as much as almost 500 pounds of trash. Yes, that people are bringing down onto our beaches and leaving. You know, I'm not calling tourists locals. I've seen locals do it. I've seen just human beings not being very smart. And so when these kids come up, and I mean, they're elementary school age for the most part, and we line them up on the dais, and the crowd goes wild. They make as big as much a fuss and hooting and hollering about that as they do about the winners of the Open Pro.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sorry, if I was a kid, I'd be going, I'm doing this next year. You know.
Do they work in teams and pairs?
Yeah, they usually work in teams. It's not always siblings. Sometimes it's because this is the Buddy Pelletier Memorial Longboard Classic. It's called the Buddy. It's become sort of a communion reunion thing. We have what's called Tent City, where people in the surf community, depending on if they're shortboard, longboard, what age division their kids in, if they're pro, if they're amateur, if they just, you know, if they live somewhere else, this is the one time a year that they can sometimes, for a lot of them, they get to catch up.
Yeah.
In a non-pressurized, well, I won't say non-competitive because it is, but it's a friendly competition, you know, but they still want to win as bragging rights. And luckily for us, it's got a lot of cachet to say, I won the Buddy, means something. Yeah. And, you know, so that draws some great people. And then we have, like I say, amateurs that come, and sometimes the amateurs win too. And then that's really, to me, that's really exciting, because even the pros are slapping them on the back going, man, that lip bash was unreal. And they're, you know, just building them up. And so we really like that too. But the kids' divisions, like I say, we as young as the parents feel comfortable with letting them out in the water. And they are judged on the same level of I guess, for lack of a better word, of competency as we judges. They're professional paid judges that are looking at these kids, looking to see if they walk the board, you know. Are they moving or just standing in a straight line and the board's moving them, or are they in control of the board? Are they going towards the end of the board, the long board, trying to get some toes on the nose, you know? Are they doing any tricks or maneuvers? And like I say, we have a lot of people actually in the water with them, and we've got people pushing them off. The parents are out there in the water with them. We've got all of our crews pretty much CPR certified. That's another thing that we did, and we don't do it on a regular basis. We do it kind of as people let us know there's a need. We have Surfers for Safer Waters, where we provide free CPR and water safety training. So we have a lot of surfers on this island that along both banks and in Carteret County that are CPR certified and water safety certified, that, like I say, a lot of times they're already out in the water, first responders. And it started because David Taylor, who's now one of the co-directors of the ESA, when he was a young kid, when he was 14 or 15 years old, there was a drowning, and they could not get to him. They recovered the body, but this young bright-faced boy comes to us and goes, I felt terrible. He said, because if he had still been alive, he said, I wouldn't have known what to do. Yeah. And we went, there's a need. Yep. We can fill that need. And so, and it's not just for surfers, it's for anybody that wants to learn CPR and water safety. And it's, it's a one afternoon class and no cost whatsoever. You know, the foundation covers the cost. And we've got the EMS in our county are phenomenal. They come and do this at no charge. Oh, that's nice. At our surf clinic, we've got EMS that come and stay the whole day. On their day off, their rare day off. Wow. that come and just sit there, and they're ready in case there's any problems. They're ready. Instead of us waiting for someone to get there, we like to be proactive. And so they're already there. So we're greatly indebted to and try and work with the municipalities that we live in, and work with law enforcement, work with the EMS and the EMTs and the fire departments, and work with the town leaders, so that we're all on the same page. But the little kids, when they win, it means something. They weren't handed. I mean, all the kids get a little something for being there. But it's not the winning trophies, and there's a difference, and they're not called, so the kids learn early on, you earn what you get in this world. And, I'm all for kids feeling good, and that's why I say we do a lot of stuff for the kids that don't, even the ones that don't win, because we want to encourage them. We want them to feel good about being there and doing things that day and being with their family, and we want the family to be proud and beaming and all that. But the real crux of it is you don't get what you don't earn. And I think that's a lesson that the sooner people learn that, the more productive they will be as citizens when they go out into the world and more ready for the reality of the world. So, along with the scholarships, the Surfing Foundation, almost everything we do, we try and put a educational, preparing them for the real world spin on things, even if it's subliminal.
That's wonderful.
I know, we're awesome. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It just seemed, that was a softball. I had to hit it. I'm sorry.
There it was. Right to you. This is a really naive question because I don't really know a lot about surfing. But when you say finding the break, is that where the waves are?
Yeah.
Why is it called a break?
Because waves break.
Oh, okay. Duh. So what happens if you're having the Buddy, but the weather's super, super calm and there's just not a lot of surf? What do you do?
Well, we just go out in the winter and have a good time.
Oh, okay.
That's why I say our competition is different. Other competitions would have to cancel and refund monies back and, lose sponsorships. This would be a big hassle. Because everyone comes knowing this is a nonprofit and it's for charity to help their brothers and sisters in the surf community. They come, if we've got what we call ankle slappers or shore break, we still hold the contest. But we've been blessed, knock on wood. and being a longboard event, we have a little more leeway in the amount of how high the waves need to be to have a really good contest. And because shortboards, they just can't get momentum behind them. If we've got ankle breakers, we can still have a contest. And the guys are so good, they go, instead of carving the waves, they go doing tricks. These guys are good. They're ready. East Coast surfers, and yes, I am extremely prejudiced. East Coast surfers, there's a reason why Kelly Slater is 11-time world champion. He's East Coast surfer. He actually was one of my brother's students. I mean, Kelly was a natural. I'm not saying my brother made him.
Is Kelly from here?
No, Kelly's from Florida. My brother lived in Central Florida for a long time. That's where he lived during his pro years, was down there. That was the heart of pro surfing at that time. But East Coast surfers, they can surf in any condition because we're used to getting everything from ankle slappers to hurricane surf. This Hawaiian epic. Matter of fact, Buttons, which he recently passed away, who was another world-ranked world champion from Hawaii, was a good friend of my brother, and he would come here. My brother would go to Hawaii, and then Buttons would come back with Buddy, and and the surfers just traveled in packs, and they traveled up and down. My brother, I always knew we would see him during hurricane season, because he would start following the storms down in the tropics, and then follow them all the way up the coastline. What we're all running away from, he's running towards.
That's kind of a nice image of he's sort of surfing in with the
he actually follows.
Wow,
Before the days of the Weather Channel and stuff, I still to this day, when I want to know what's really happening with the weather, I ask the surfers. Even with the Weather Channel, all these technologies and Doppler and computerized stuff, I ask the surfers. They're right way more than the guys on TV or the internet. When I want to know how to prepare for a storm or when to prepare or how much I need to prepare, they tell me that's what I follow.
Yeah.
And we've seen pretty well. We've been pretty well because of it.
Where was your brother's favorite place to surf?
Here, the entire island. We've moved the Buddy through the years from different places because he considered that, the entire island, that was his home break. And there's a couple of secret spots that are not necessarily secret, but I still cannot divulge without fear of them going, really? But they're not well kept secrets, but I'm not going to be the one. I'll say Raleigh Bay. I'll get away with that. There are some of our little smaller islands in Carteret County during the right conditions produce surf that would make the Hawaiians think twice.
Wow.
And it's very, so they're, but Buttons came from Florida, and he's used to surfing, pipeline and all these like 50-foot waves and all this crazy madness. And he's following Buddy on one of Buddy's hurricane tours. And this is another story related to me. I love the stories secondhand. That I'm not sure if they were in Wilmington. It was somewhere here in North Carolina, and the Florida guys had come up with them because they knew Buddy would know exactly where to go to hit everything just right. And the waves were just right, but there's also like roofs floating, docks going in, and Buddy's like, come on, let's go. And Button's like, you're out of your mind. He went, no, man, just dodge. Just dodge. He said, you're not going to see this often. Dodge.
Wow.
So Buddy went out, and my friends from Florida was like, Button's just like, and then he watched Buddy do a few waves and went, I gotta go. I gotta go. And so he went out there after seeing it was possible to see the big roof coming far enough away to dodge. And
That is hilarious. Was that here or Florida?
Yeah, no, that was up here during one of the hurricanes. But yeah, no, this area, he had a love of many breaks. He loved water, period. And he was, like I say, he was born to the life he led. He was so lucky. Some of us stumble all through life and never find what truly brings us peace, joy, and happiness and fulfillment and a sense of accomplishment and make a living at. All at the same time.
Yeah, all those things coming together.
Yeah, all those things came together just so he was born in just the right decade, just the right generation, with just the right natural physical abilities, with just the right attitude. Just all these things lined up at just the right time for him to live, because we on a personal level miss our brother, and that will always be, but we don't mourn him, I think, to the degree that we might otherwise, because he lived a life most of us will never understand the level of fulfillment that he had. We'll never grasp it, because until you experience it, you don't understand that level of reality until it's there. And he lived it. And, and I think he knew how lucky he was. And I think that had a lot to do with his ability to stay cool, calm, laid back, be a Southern gentleman, had good home training. Dad was always in our head. Anything we've ever done, our dad's always been in our head going, okay, is that really what you want to say? Is that really how you want to handle that? And so I think, like I say, a lot of things just lined up for Buddy to have the life that Buddy was meant to have. And a lot of us spend our life searching. And some of us find out, some of us never do. So to have lost him at 44 years of age, which seems atrociously young now that I'm older, at the time, it's like, well, he lived mid-40s, he did good.
Yeah.
And then now I realize he was just a baby still.
Yeah.
And, but he lived 3, maybe 4 lifetimes. And he impacted people in ways that I will never. I can't imagine having the impact on anybody. Just an example, there towards the end, kitty. There towards the end, his physical stamina was such that he had a hard time receiving guests. He was so focused on the foundation, he used all his energy for that, and it would just mental thinking, he was so far gone with the cancer would wear him out physically to where he was just spent. He used his reserves. And this fellow drove from Florida and asked if he could see Buddy, and it's like, we'll see. We're not sure, if he's up to. He said, well, I can't stay long because I have to turn around and drive back because I have to be at work tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, okay, we'll let Buddy know you're here. And it was really great because Buddy really had no idea the impact and the legacy that he left behind.
Somebody would come all that way to see him.
And that was just one of many incidents. And he's like, yes. And he actually, that was one of the last times he walked around. He took the guy outside into the yard. It's like, we're outside people, in case you haven't noticed. He walked around and talked with him. The guy could only stay for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then he left. He said, thank you. He got in his car.
Wow.
Drove the 16 hours back home.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The guy said, he probably won't remember me. He said, because I just surfed in the lineup with him a couple times. So that means there was conversation that took place. Mm-hmm. And that one conversation made such an impact on another human being's life. I mean, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
So
I'm back to it now.
I think it's so beautiful what the surfing community does for somebody after they pass away. Is it called?
The paddle out.
The paddle out.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, and also we'll be providing you with some footage of one that was done not too long ago from a drone, so you get the overhead view, and it's very moving to me.
Yeah.
Very moving.
Yeah.
What it is it's not based on any single religious belief or philosophy. It's a community thing. It's not meant to offend or take away from any other ritual or fundamental thing that some people may believe in or not believe in. To say it's non-denominational, it's not even that. It doesn't even go there. What this is, it's the community's way of paying respect. It's not done every time a surfer passes away. It's done when someone is lost too young. It's done when a legend passes. It's the highest honor your community can pay.
And where did it originate? Here?
No. It's a Hawaiian ritual, and it was done for the kings. Surfing is the sport of kings, But what happens is the community comes together. They come together on the beach. It's very casual. There's, it's not a very regimented, restrictive type, well, you do this and don't do this. No. Everybody, there's a set time and place. That's about as structured as it gets. Everybody gets together, swapping stories, laughter through tears, which is the best of emotional combinations in my mind. And then everyone paddles out. They form a circle. Inside the circle is someone representing the loved one or the loved one's family. And sometimes there will be ashes. Sometimes there'll just be a ceremonial lay, And, everybody, the person in the center is talking about the good impact that this person had on everyone in the circle and beyond. Sorry.
It's all right.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
it's a very visceral. If you ever have the privilege of being at one,
Yeah.
whew.
Wow.
But everybody listens to the center of the circle, and then they lay in the water, and then everybody starts splashing and hollering and making happy sounds because they're helping them on to their next phase of their journey.
Yeah.
Wherever the water takes them, represented by the lake, wherever the water takes them.
Yeah.
And they want them to know they're happy that they're going on. It's not ended. You're still going on. You're still all around us. And
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm not a crier. This is weird.
Was your brother's paddle out here?
That was held over at Shackelford.
Oh, really?
And we had people come from all over the world. It was very...
Why Shackelford?
That's his favorite place in the world. We all grew up. Our entire life, every weekend was spent on Shackelford. Our family lived over there. We have family buried there.
You do? Wow.
Yeah, like I say, we go back a long ways. We've dropped them off at Portsmouth. We dropped them off at Shackelford.
Did you say your mother was from Harkers Island?
No, my dad's last wife.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. No, my mother's from the mountains of
But you
North
still
Carolina.
have ancestors that
Oh, yeah.
on Shackelford.
Yeah. Yeah. And Portsmouth and Jamestown. And a lot of people don't realize that are from this area, they're actually survivors of the starving time at Jamestown. They have no idea because they've not looked that far back. But that's how a lot of this area got populated.
Pelletier is a French name.
Yes, we were French Huguenots. Yeah.
Were you part of the whole migration from Acadia?
No,
Okay.
no, we came. There are three. This is completely sidetracked.
Oh,
There
sorry.
are three, historically, three entries into the continental North America of Pelletiers. There are three branches. There's the Acadia, then there is Louisiana, and then there's Beaufort, North Carolina. If you are a Pelletier anywhere in the continental United States, you're a descendant of one of three lines. In Carteret County, the direct line stayed here. My family is the direct line. And, there others have gone other places, but, yeah, we've been here a long time.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and my mother was a Wade. I mean, my grandmother, my dad's mom was a Wade, so that family's also been here forever. So I'm... Basically, I had to marry someone from Pennsylvania just to get out of the gene pool. So I didn't have cross-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Because I'm related literally to just about everybody.
Hey, buddy. Well, Lisa, we've been talking probably about an hour.
Oh, I'm fine, but if you're ready to stop.
Well, I just want to check in and, just ask you, is there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about?
Can I see your list of questions
Sure.
again, and I'll breeze over those. Maybe you thought about going around. Well, move this way.
I'm a lover.
Yes, he is.
I'm a lover.
Okay.
I really appreciate your time today, and
the things that I could talk about, which is more the culture and community and what the sport means to Carteret County, that has changed over time, and I do believe very much for the better. It's become family oriented. We're slowly getting rid of the stigma of the early stereotypes. Didn't help. We joke, call them the Jeff Spicolis or the 5%ers. Any subculture is going to have the 5%ers, and
Spicoli, is that from
Fast Times at Ridgemont High? That is actually putting somebody down in the surf community if you call them a Spicoli.
Yeah.
Because that's not a good thing. And I can honestly say I don't know a single human being in the surfing community that actually talks like that.
Yeah.
Very proud to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I do think that that surfing is not so much gotten a bad rap as people haven't changed their thinking of the sport with the times. I know there are a lot of wonderful sports and activities for the kids here in Carteret County. This has always been a very physical community between our past with living off the land, whether it's farming the land or the water. You know, there's always been a lot of physicality. And I think genetically that makes us predisposed to be very good at some certain things. And I think athleticism is something that we're very good at as a whole on a community level. And so we've got some wonderful athletes in all different kinds of sports in the community that we're all very proud of. But something I think that is different about surfing than the others is like I say, it doesn't end when school ends. Whether you stay pro, whether you go pro or stay amateur, it doesn't end. It continues on as you want to be involved in it. And having been a non-surfer that's now, 20 years deeply involved in the surfing community, and I recently retired, like I said, due to health issues, or semi-retired. I still do a lot of the scholarship and humanitarian aid stuff and outreach into the community, do as much as I can. But something that I have to leave you with, there's not been a single challenge I have ever thrown out to the surfing community to as a whole or as individuals that they have not stepped up and given up their time, given up their money, given up resources until the problem is solved. Not a single time in 20 years has anyone ever said no to a problem. And that's including rebuilding houses, big things, little things. It doesn't matter. If you ask for help in this community, you will have people standing in line to help.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's surfers. If there's a problem that's brought to their attention, you go, we want to do this. They go, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And they don't leave until it's done.
How do you get the word out about something?
It's called the Coconut Telegraph. It was there way before the internet, way before, and it still moves faster than the internet. It's word of mouth, but word of mouth is where one guy can be standing on this beach, and within 30 seconds he's talking to somebody in Australia, and it's going worldwide.
Oh.
See, Coconut Telegraph, when word leaked out that my brother was sick, like I said, this was before internet, cell phones, cable TV was just, I don't even know if cable TV was here yet.
Yeah.
No, it was, but we joke about that. Because we always say we're at the end of the world. We get everything last.
Right.
But, like I say, before cell phones or internet, before the day had ended, when we got the diagnosis, before the day had ended, the hospital was inundated with so many phone calls from around the world that we actually had to set up rules for visitation and how to handle phone calls. They had never had. I guess for them it was the closest to a celebrity.
Yeah.
At the hospital, they had to develop a protocol on how to handle the influx of visitors and phone calls all out, different time zones. There'd be a phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning going, I want to talk to Buddy. How's it going? What's going on with Buddy? And because this was before the HEPA laws were in, and so people were calling to get an update because there were 60 other people that were waiting for them to spread that to them, and then that would go to, just like the pyramid, spread down, spread down, spread down. And in just a few hours, people around the globe could be updated on information through the Coconut Telegraph.
Gosh. So when you talk about the community, you're talking about wider than Carteret County.
Yes.
You're talking about the surfing,
Yes.
a worldwide community, really.
Yes, and for this exhibit, we're focusing on Carteret County surfers and the impact that, because the Smithsonian, something they were very interested in, is showing how sports benefits the community, not just the sportsman, not just the athlete playing. And that's something that the surfing community, I don't think a lot of people realize, the surfing community are huge on volunteering in their community. They're huge on giving back. They're huge on putting money where their mouth is, or putting sweat equity where their mouth is. And like I say, we've got the scholarship program that, like I say, 100% graduation rate. Humanitarian aid, just off the top of my head, lowballing, it's in the six figures. And the majority of that help has been in central, eastern North Carolina. We have helped get as far away as Puerto Rico all the way up to New York and in between, but the majority of the humanitarian aid has been right in this general area, and we don't publicize it. That was one of Buddy's rules, and at first it's like, we're kind of cutting our nose off to spite our face because we're not telling everybody all the cool, really wonderful things we're doing. But he had a reason for it, and as time has progressed, I've seen just how wise he was in this. It's horrible, horrible, unthinkable to be in a place of needing help. Having nowhere to turn, not having what you need to take care of a loved one or yourself. It's nearly impossible to ask for help. So you don't want to turn that into a three-ring circus so we can pat ourselves on the back for doing such a good job.
Yeah.
It's going to make people less likely to reach out to us in a time of need.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And so we keep records of everything, but we don't publicize. If the families want to tell their neighbors or the community something, the foundations, that's fine. That's at their discretion.
Yeah.
But we don't advertise. And we don't mention names. We like them to have, like I said, we've got all the records, but in the community, we don't mention names. And what's really, really cool, another statistic that I love to share on the humanitarian aid end, when we've gone in to help someone, it's during a time of catastrophic need, probably the worst time of their entire life, if they survive the situation. If they survive the situation, 100% have gone on to be extremely involved in volunteering. Not just with our organization, but basically anybody that'll have them. Take them on any day of the week. They've become extremely involved in their community. Even if they already were before, they've amped it up. If they weren't before, they have started.
So they're paying it forward.
Paying it forward.
I got helped, I'm going to help.
Yeah, that's one thing that we talk to them about,
Yeah.
that we will do everything humanly possible to help you. We ask that you do the same for another human being. That's just being a human being.
Great. Yeah.
So that's why I say Buddy was so forward-thinking that sometimes I sit back and go, it's like, how could you be just so awesome in one package?
Yeah.
And he was incredibly good-looking.
Uh-huh.
We grew up, my sister and I joke all the time, we grew up in a family where the men were pretty and the women were smart.
Was Buddy the oldest?
Yeah, Buddy was the oldest brother.
Yeah.
My sister Lynn is the oldest, and there was Buddy.
Okay.
We have another sister, Gay. We have a brother, Kevin, that we lost a couple of years ago. And then there's me, and then another sister, Allie, and then my younger brother, Kit, and then another sister, Lori.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is over 24 years.
Oh my gosh.
There's 12 years between my older sister and I, and there's 12 years between my younger sister and I. So we asked Dad when he got married for the third time, could you kind of slow your roll on that there, Dad? And feel free to edit as much as you like. Some of this is just casual conversation. Two girls sitting on the porch,
That's so funny.
But yeah, I like to think we're a very unusual family, and we embrace our strangeness. And so we had a very forward-thinking father in the 50s and 60s when girls had to wear dresses and weren't allowed to take science in school.
Wow.
He took care of that at home.
All right.
Our older siblings, as they would go to school and college, they would send their books back to us, and the younger children would start college classes in the first grade,
Yeah.
because there's only so much you're going to get, because this was you think it's a sleepy little place now? You should have seen it in the 60s.
Wow. Yeah.
That was my time. I'm sure the 50s and the 40s were even more so.
Yeah.
But yeah, because like the lifestyle of the Down Easters, that bucolic, quiet lifestyle of hard working, you know, that's fading away. And I know people like Karen that's their whole way of life. It's all they've ever known. That's got to be a nightmare to see it, to actually be living in the generation when it's coming to an end.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart, because we ride around here and go, gosh, Dad, what would Dad think if Dad saw Moorhead just in the less than a decade he's been gone? The changes that have happened.
A lot of what you've been talking about with surfing, surfers just having to be on the water. You know, that draw is so familiar being around the fishermen down east, and it has been really hard to watch it decline. I mean, it's just since I've been here.
Pamlico
Fish
Sound
houses
is
closing
dead.
left and right.
Yeah.
You know, for people to identify with something so strongly and then it goes away.
My grandfather was a commercial fisherman.
Really?
Back when they called shrimp bugs, and they were just some foul nets is all they were good for.
Yeah.
And my how times
But who's
changed.
to say Buddy didn't have the same sort of, you know,
connection
hard
to
to
the water.
articulate connection to the water as a fisherman, only, you know, in a different...
Well, I think maybe growing up in a water-based community, whether it's working or pleasure or whatever, because I can speak for myself, I have never lived further than 2 blocks away from water. I can't.
Yeah.
I have to be able to smell salt in the air. I can't, you know, I've been very blessed that my ancestors hit this bump of land sticking out of the ocean.
Yeah, heck yeah.
I say things all the time. Way to go! You did a good job. I really appreciate it. You know.
Yeah.
A lot of forward-thinking people in my family, evidently. And but yeah, I think you know that the sport does give back to the community in ways that a lot of the collegiate sports are unable to. Because they have to focus on, sad to say, raising funds just to keep their own programs going in the schools.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there are things that they do to help their community every chance that they get. But the surfing community is completely different dynamics than any other, quote-unquote, organized sport. Because we do have the the ESA as an organization, which we'll be focusing heavily on in our part with the Smithsonian.
Yeah. Is the ESA all the way up and down the Atlantic coast?
Yes, the Eastern.
From Florida to Maine?
Yes, the Eastern Surfing Association. And it is, like I say, it's the largest amateur membership sports association in the world.
Wow. Okay, and then where does Surfrider Association come in?
Surfrider is an organization that is wonderful. I've contacted the chapter here. Ron Butler started the chapter here. And that's an individual thing where someone starts a charter, starts a chapter, all up and down. But this is not just East Coast wide. This is worldwide.
The Surfrider.
Yeah, the Surfrider Foundation. Okay. And people open and start chapters in different areas. And they do things for the environment. They test the water. They do water quality tests. They make containers for cigarette butts for people to leave those easily in there instead of on the beach. Okay. They do trash, what we call trash sweeps. You know, things like that. And they do have surf nights and things like that to bring the community in and slip in a little environmental awareness while they can.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
You know, whatever it takes to educate.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's an awfully cool group of people. I hope you get to meet someone, because everybody's individual, but yet there's this cohesive thread that ties us all together, you know. And like I say, I've been accepted. I'm a non-surfer, and I've been accepted in the community. You know, like I say, I've got a blood family and then a salt family. And that salt family is just as thick, and the ties are just as strong as my blood family.
That's really nice. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, I've just learned a lot, and I'm impressed that surfing is so much more than a sport.
That's very important to us. That's why we do a lot of the outreach that we do, and that's why we go talk to municipalities and talk to other organizations and try and get involved with things like the Course Sound Museum and the Smithsonian exhibit, because we do want people to see that it's individuals that come together with a common love of one thing, but these are all people that are driven. I don't know, I can't really put my thumb on it, but they're driven. Something about surfing gives them so much. They're driven to give in return. You know, I've seen surfers out there and see a little kid and coming out and see the kid's face just light up, and they go, "Take the board home with you." That board cost them $700. They go, "Take that board home with you."
Wow.
You know, that I see that a lot, actually. That's not an isolated incident.
Wow,
Yeah. And,
Wow.
you know, so that's a community I'm really happy to say I'm a part of, and that they've accepted me as one of them. They see, evidently, hopefully, they see those traits in me.
Yeah, yeah.
And
obviously.
so, you know, that boosts me up and gives me energy to do things that physically I might not normally push myself to do anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
All right. Well, Lisa, anything else you want to add before we bring this to an end?
surfers rule.
Yes, they do. Well, thank you so much for this.